because it was too much work the last days. And this cutting the videos, it's much longer than you believe.
I've done it with some
so I hope there is some information for our viewers in this video, so it's worth the efforts. Okay, so just starting with the interview, I'm sitting here with Robert at the Twino office. Thank you for watching one more time, and I think it will become a very interesting interview because there are some other details than in the other interviews I did the last days. But maybe first of all, just a few words to the P2P platform. I will make it in short sentences because it's the same beginning in all interviews and maybe boring for our viewers right now. P2P platform gives the chance to invest in consumer loans, I think, almost. We will talk a little bit more detail later. And you can have a return of about 10% per year, starting from 10 up to 12, okay. And in this case, it's all in-house, so also the persons who lend are in the same house as the investors. So borrowers and investors come at least on this point. Okay, great. So then maybe you want to introduce yourself a little bit in a few sentences at the beginning. Whom I'm talking to.
Yeah, my name is Robert and I'm the investment platform lead at Twino. I've been with the company for almost 2 years now, but before that I was working as an investment project manager, and then our previous platform lead left, Evgeny, so I guess some of you already know him, and he left, so I took his place, and since then, I think for now half a year or something like that, I've worked as the platform lead, and my previous experience comes from investing and insurance industry, so been pretty much in finance for whole professional careers.
Okay, very good, thank you. And maybe you can just describe what kind of loans, a little bit more detail than I did before, do you offer for the investors?
Yeah. So currently we are in 5 countries. We started off in Latvia in 2009, I think already. We started as a balance sheet lender. So at the very beginning there was no platform, it was just lending operations. Then we moved also to Poland, Russia, Georgia and Kazakhstan currently. So we are operating in 5 countries. We also have offices in all of those countries because those originators are inside of our group. So all of those companies are issuing loans, but they're part of Twino group. So all of the loans that we list on the platform are sort of our loans. And those loans are consumer loans, so usually they're quite short term, but we also have installment projects in Latvia, for example, and in Poland, and then those sums aren't that big. They're usually starting from a couple of €100 to up to 5,000 euros, I think, in Latvia. So that's pretty much the segment that we have in the lending side.
Okay, so which kind of repayment do these loans have, monthly or per year, or is it different?
In most cases it's monthly repayment. So for example, as it is peer-to-peer platform, as we receive the money from the borrower, we also send the money to the investor. So if you're an investor, you receive your payments on a monthly basis, which is a good thing because at the end of the day you receive effective interest rate, which is bigger if you keep reinvesting your money.
Yeah, exactly. That's maybe the next point I'm talking about in a lot of interviews. The one thing is, of course, I appreciate monthly repayment because for me as an investor, it's also an income. It's good diversification to the stock market, of course, where, for example, the dividends are paid once a year, so I also have a monthly income because I mainly live from my investments right now. But the other thing is, we are always talking about does it make a difference on the compounding if there is a monthly repayment or annual repayment? For example, maybe 2 loans, both at 12%. One is repaid monthly, the other one is repaid per year. Is it a difference at the end of the return?
There is a difference because, for example, if you receive your money back on a monthly basis, then you can reinvest the money, and then you have the compound interest, which in the end of the day is bigger. For example, if you have a loan of 11% or 12%, if you have an annual, so once a year repayment, you will receive that amount, 11 or 12%. But if you have the repayments on a monthly basis, then you will receive 11.5 or 12.5, something like that. So it's a bit bigger interest.
But of course you have to reinvest as fast as possible, otherwise it will be lost. Okay, great. So maybe now we continue to the questions of the different community members.
Sure.
For example, Aktien mit Kopf community, there was one question. Evi Regi asked, if an investor get a 10% rate out of it, how high is the interest charged to the consumer who actually has to pay back the credit?
Yeah. It depends on the markets. For example, now we are 5 markets. Initially, when we started in the markets, if it's a new market, for example, we launched Kazakhstan, I think, a year or something like that, maybe even a little
markets,
more.
Of course,
It's an interesting emerging market, and we started there at the very beginning. The interest rates are higher. I would say around 100% annually, which sounds a lot. But the thing is that those are short-term loans, so you receive the money on a monthly basis, so it's around 10 or up to 20 on a monthly basis, and then you can sort of issue the loan again. And at the beginning, it's very important that you have as much data as possible, so you have to you have to issue the loans, and then you have to adjust your scoring modules so that you wouldn't have too big bad rates of the loans, so that you would receive as much money back as possible. So the first year usually is a tricky one because you lose some money.
Exactly, that's maybe my additional question from my side. Is there enough difference to secure the buyback and payment security loans? Because for me as an investor, I like it. Of course, it's spread.
Well, for example, we tried also to do business in Spain. We afterwards have sold the operations there because it wasn't that successful for us, and we started there, and I think we were there for 2 years, and we still didn't break even. So it was something like we didn't want to have in our portfolio, and also to have investors, because if you lose money, it was a small part of the business, but anyway. And then we sold it to other investors, huge corporate.
I think the problem, of course, a lot of Spanish people don't pay back, of course, but the other thing is that also the lockout is very slow, I think, for execution, all that stuff.
The market was pretty full already with a lot of originators, so it was really hard to get your market share. And if you don't have a lot of market share, then you sort of have to pay a lot for one loan. So the marketing expenses are really, really big.
Okay, I see. So then again to the question to my friend Tuan, the blog owner of finanzpolster.com. He asks, when will you reach break-even? Maybe as the platform or maybe as the whole group?
In our case, we are looking at that as a group. Because in our case we sort of make money of issuing the loans, and then we have the platform side where we sort of acquire extra capital for issuing the loans. So cost of capital for us is the platform side, and the loan issuing business is where we earn the money. And that's why we look at the bigger picture, the whole group. And we have already break even. We were profitable for 7 or something like that years, because we started in 2009. Then we launched the platform, and the couple of years weren't that good because there was a lot of extra expenses, and we tried a lot of new countries. For example, we went to Spain. We also tried in Mexico, which wasn't a success at all. So a couple of bad projects that went there, and then we now are again profitable since since last year's end. I think November or December, not sure which one, but we already are profitable, and now we are doing really good. We are earning quite great numbers on a monthly basis. So all of the countries that we currently have are profitable for the first time ever, because previously we had some development projects such as Spain where we lost some money, then Mexico where we only lost money, and now we have all the profitable countries, which is great. And now we're looking also to some new countries where to try the business, but still not sure in which direction should we go.
Okay, so I just try to get it in my brain. Of course, I watched it not so closely. I prefer to get my experiences like now in the office, direct talk to the people, to the employees, to the CEOs. But of course, I watched it in the P2P Credit Forum, for example. There was a lot of worries about the financials and the financial report. And still there are a lot of people worried. So maybe we can talk a little bit spontaneous about this. To be honest, but I just had it in my brain on the way here, because I walked here, and when I walk, I always have new ideas for the interview. What was it about? Why do we have to wait so long for the reports?
Well, as you probably know, there's a lot of questions like that. So we are trying to address them, but usually through the support or the email communication. We now have issued 2016 financial report, and we will issue 2017 in the coming months, but not sure when exactly. We are aiming for the end of the summer, but not sure there. And at that point, we are planning also to issue the sort of the first part of 2018 to have also the actual data, because the problem historically has been that we haven't really done IFRS reports, so statements that are official by big audit companies, and because of that it was slower. Then the additional problem was that some of our financial systems, for example, that came from Poland, I think we launched in Poland in 2011, and they were sort of getting old, and the data quality was wasn't that good. And so we have worked a lot on that, so we have finally managed to do that, so the data quality is good right now, and we can understand the numbers better at our side as well. So that's sort of, I think the technical side was
okay, it was the technical side, the quality of the report.
And then again we launched the platform, so it sort of changed a lot in our internal transactions, because previously we had just loan issuing business. Now we have also the investor side, and so the loan moves from loan originator to our headquarters, then it moves to investor, then it comes again. So a lot of new transactions.
Okay, so the technical problem maybe, and do you think there are better times ahead? Yeah. So
sure. Yeah, we are working already on 2017.
Just makes the investors a little bit nervous.
I understand. Yeah.
And in this case, I want to continue, of course, the financials of 2016. A lot of people worry about these figures. Do we have to worry about it? It was
not that much. We have equity that is quite big. I think now it's 9 million before 2016, then in 2016, but I think net loss of 1.7 million euro. So we will still have pretty much a lot of equity. And as I said, we are currently really stable in all of the countries that we operate in.
Okay.
We currently can't really issue the numbers because they're not audited, but again, they are at our side, and I can say that they're really nice right now, but well, we have
so we'll be very happy to see the financial reports of 2017. And
2017 wasn't that good because of the Georgia. We were operating in Georgia, and the regulatory environment changed there, so it was a little struggle in the first, I would say, 6 months of the year, but starting from the middle of the year, it already got a lot better because we sort of diversified our portfolio, concentrating more to Russia and Poland, and looking at the costs more, because previously we didn't pay that. We wanted to sort of expand really fast, but it's a challenging thing, and some markets weren't that good, and now we are looking more at the numbers just to make sense of that, because we have investors, and it's really important part of our business that we sort of want to take care of, to offer also the financial part, because that has been a challenge. We know that, but we are really working on that.
So maybe it was just a little bit too fast in some countries.
Yeah. Mexico, it was total nightmare.
Okay, so but you say, of course, we don't need to worry too much because
currently
it's really,
really good.
Okay, great. So better times ahead, you say, and then there is another thing some people worry about, and maybe it's just the communication between you, the platform, and the investors about the CEO who left. I saw him right now. Maybe you can tell us who is the CEO of the group, who is the CEO of the platform, what is it about, just to know the people behind. I think that's always important.
Sure. So we have Twino Group, and it's sort of, I would say it's separated in two parts. We have lending operations, which is basically all the 5 countries that we are originating loans, and we have platform side who works with the investors. We historically had Armans, the guy who you just met, sitting in the sofa.
Meeting,
He's the founder and shareholder of the company, and he's the group CEO, sort of responsible for the lending operations. And then the other side is investment platform, where I'm the responsible person now, and previously there was Evgeny Skazanins. I think he was working here for 1.5 or 2 years already, but now he has left since November or December last year. He went to work for a bank, so a different company.
Okay.
So maybe there's this confusion who's the CEO, because historically we had basically platform CEO and group CEO, so maybe it's misleading wording, but I would say it's just split in 2 parts, and it makes easier to understand the idea how we operate.
Okay, thank you. So The next question would be, you said better times ahead, of course, and maybe we can just talk a little bit in any way about what happens if the platform, the P2P platform goes bankrupt. What happens to the money of the investors?
Yeah, in the very unlikely case of that, we obviously have thought about that, and the process is pretty straightforward. You have a company or a person who is responsible for well, sort of dividing the money, who owns what. And in our case, we, as a loan originator and the company who really have the loans at their balance sheet, we sort of have the money. So in the case if the platform or the Twino goes down, it doesn't mean that the borrowers don't have to give the money back. It's still their responsibility, and if they don't, they still have to go to the court and well, they have to give the money back. And we have, again, the responsibility to give the money back to the investors who we have sort of a loan from them. If you look on the balance sheet, so our liability is an investor capital that we have got from them, and then our asset side is that we have issued the loans to borrowers who still have to repay the money.
And this repaid money would go to the investor directly?
Yes. That's according to the agreement. They are the first first persons who receive the money, and our portfolio is bigger than the side that we own to the investors. So even if we go bankrupt in some case, I don't know, big financial crisis or whatever can happen.
Very important, I think, yeah. Okay, so let's continue to the P2Pkredite.com forum. Polanga asks, can you please comment on your assignment rules on loans auto-invest function? I mean, I think he means, so who comes first come, first serve, or who get the loans?
For our auto-invest, we have sort of created you can call it a queue. So there's just a big queue of all of the auto-invest that we have. So currently we have a little above of 13,000 of investors that are active investors. So most of them have at least one auto invest, and sort of if you create one auto invest currently, then it goes at the end of the queue, and then there's all of the other investors that are ahead of you, and then sort of we list the loans during the night most of the time. I think there's just some exceptions. I think the loans from Kazakhstan, they are showing up during the daytime, but most of them come in the night, and then the auto invest starts to work, I think, at 4 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and then it starts to invest in the loans just based on the queue that we have and based on the criteria that all of the people have. For example, you have auto invest with criteria that you want to invest in loans starting from 11%. Then if there's no loans like that available, then you don't invest, and they take a look on the next auto invest in the queue. Then if there is a criteria that you can invest in 10% loans, then you invest. So it just goes like that.
Okay, great. Then, I think the next question is not interesting in this case because it's a very general question sometimes, and I don't want to make it too long. Maybe we continue with the question with Katja, from Katja. She asked, what are your expectations regarding the future, next 5 years, of P2P in general?
Okay, sure. Currently, we see that a lot of P2P players are going in a little different direction. We see that Zopa is creating, for example, an online bank, which is the first P2P platform ever, and they come from the UK. So it's a bit different market, but still they're sort of testing also other ways to do their business. And
SMS also makes online banking right now.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the cases that might happen, that some of the P2P players could go in the banking industry, challenger banks, neobanks. That's one. And but I think the peer-to-peer won't disappear because we currently see that the market is really booming. The volumes are growing, so we see that there's a big demand for investments like that, and also for the lending side, because historically you only had the option to go to the bank. Now you can just go online and take the loan from originator that is not a bank. So I think it's good for the consumer. Whatever happens, it's always about the consumer, and if there's a demand from their side, there always will be peer-to-peer platforms, or maybe they might change something, but I think it will be there.
Yeah, and I think it's just much smarter than traditional banks. Yeah, for both sides, for the investor, of course, because doesn't need to pay the spread between with the building, the big bank building, all the employees and so on, because most of it is the software, and very intelligent and smart software, and to bring together the investor and the borrower, and between there only, of course, some people who handle all that, to make it comfortable, but at least most of it is the software.
And the costs, obviously, the costs are a lot lower for us. We don't have to have representative offices and big buildings and so on. So a fine office, but if you compare it to the bank, it's
there are a lot of chances. If you look, for example, the building of Deutsche Bank, but okay, we should stop talking about Deutsche Bank and then the finances. Okay, so then maybe we can talk about your company, about Twino, maybe also the group. I think is interesting. The next 5 years, what do you expect?
Yeah, sure. We are also looking in different directions. We have currently sort of the loan origination side and platforms, so the investing side. We are also sort of calculating, looking on the business case for other things. One of that is also online bank. We are looking at that, whether that makes sense from our perspective. That's one thing. Another thing is something that I think I can't really talk about because it will be launched in a couple of weeks, but it will be more on the lending side. So it's not that
so not for the
investors. For investors, we also launched a new feature. Hopefully this month, because currently it's in development. We mentioned that in a newsletter. It will be related to the currency exchange. So currently all of the investors can invest either in euro or pound, depending which is their favorable currency. We will add an option which initially will still have your euros in your account, so you won't have different currency in your account, but you will have sort of an option to invest in a loan with the currency exposure, which means that you will get a higher interest rate already, for example, say 14% per year, and it can really fluctuate based on the currency performance. So, for example, if the ruble falls,
both direction, of course. But maybe it's a diversification, especially for investors who are in more assets.
If you want to just diversify your portfolio, higher risk. Obviously, you have the currency exposure, which is higher risk. But if you want, you can still invest in euro or pound. So it's sort of an additional feature to the existing part of the business. So if you want some option to earn, say, 20% per year, then it will be possible if you have positive currency fluctuations.
I think after amount of money, it's also important to diversify the currencies because, a lot of people always say to me, why do you invest in dollars, why do you invest in Swiss francs and so on? But I say, okay, yes, I live in the euro country, but you never know what's happening with the euro, and you never know if you stay here forever. So I think it's also good to have not only diversification on the asset allocation like stock market and so on, it's also good to have different currencies, and this would be another chance just to diversify a little bit, because everybody thinks euro is the safest thing, but I'm not really sure about this as well. So of course I love Europe and everything, but you never know. Okay.
By the way, it also why do we make it? It's also a new future, of course, for the investors, but it also makes a lot of sense for us because our business is currently in 5 countries, as you mentioned, but euro is only in Latvia. So we have Russian ruble, we have Kazakhstan tenge, Georgian lari, Polish zloty, so everything. So we are also starting to look at the currencies, how we can add value to the investors at the same time making it's safer for us because ruble moves like that. Kazakhstan, it's also
exactly. It's really heavy up and down. Of course, they're very volatile. So you need good nerves. You sometimes need them in any way in investing. Okay, then maybe we talk a little bit about the Baltics and Baltics economy. How important is it, of course, for Twino because you're in different countries, and but also what do you think about the economy right here?
In Latvia or in Baltics in general?
Maybe let's start with Latvia and then the Baltics.
Sure. So I think Latvia is doing fine. We have sort of this transactional period of 20 years back from now, which was completely different country with after we were part of the Soviet Union. Now we are
when was it? Sorry.
1990. So
1990.
Now 20, almost 30 years ago. So since then a lot has changed. Now we have the same technologies as everywhere. We have the great part that we have is that the people that we have are with really good education. So that's something that is sort of a good investment in the future. The bad thing is that the birth rates aren't that high, so I think the same problem in Germany.
Yes.
Not that many kids for people. But other than that, I think that the situation in Latvia, if you compare it to 10 years ago, it's getting really better. We have we don't have that many success stories as Estonians, for example. They had these big companies that made the headlines, Skype, which is Estonian based, and then they were globally known phenomenon. So now they have this Taxify, which is also attracted more than 100 million a couple of weeks ago. So we don't have that success stories, and I think we have to wait for one. If we have one, then it will be booming. More people will be looking at technology.
Maybe especially the P2P sector.
Yeah, it's one of the sectors.
Really great doing.
In the peer-to-peer sector, we are doing really good. We are currently, I think, for the first time ever, Mintos is in the first place in continental Europe. So it's without the UK, and we are in the second place based on the monthly volumes that we are getting funded by the investors. So I think it's quite cool. If we take a look, there's Aux Money, which is a huge company from Germany. There's United Credit, which is from France, and those are a lot bigger economies.
Aux Money.
So, yeah, but still they're major players. So
I only invest in the Baltics. What about the P2P or in P2P platforms from the Baltics, because it's much smarter, even the design is much better. But the most important thing is the return. And the return is nothing to compare. Okay, great. So the Baltic economy, and maybe we also could talk a bit, because it's especially interesting at Twino, I think. You are in very interesting countries invested on the borrower side, so maybe we can talk a little bit about these countries. Maybe you make a short summary here.
Yeah, sure. So we started in Latvia because that's where our founder comes from, so it was the obvious choice. But Latvian markets are quite small, and what we see in Latvia a lot is that if you're coming from Latvia, if you want to make it big, starting from day one, you're looking globally, or at least on some sort of international scale, because otherwise the market is relatively small. And that's what we have done. We started to go to Poland. Poland is also from Europe, so it's pretty great economy, so it made sense there. But because we heard that it's a good market, then we tried it out, and it is a great market, and so the economy is really growing. I think top 5 place in the Europe. Then we went to Russia, which is something more exotic, if you will. But the market was at the beginning really challenging. We lost the money there for I think a year or more. So it didn't look really good at the beginning. But now it's the most profitable country that we have. So we have quite big market share. I think we are the second biggest online lender in the country. So it's doing good there, and the regulatory environment there is quite straightforward. It's not, everybody thinks probably that Russia is something wild, but it's quite good from the
big market, of course.
Yeah, it's huge market. So from consumer lending, it's really good. Then we tried also Georgia, which was a huge market for us. They had really good culture because people always wanted to pay their debts, which is something that we didn't see in Mexico because the fraud rates there were super high, skyrocketing. But in Georgia, the culture that they have there, they're really great people. So it was good there, but the regulatory environment changed, and then it was really hard to earn money on short-term loans. The installment loans could still work, but the short-term loans, it's really hard because the costs, if you compare to the revenue that you receive, didn't really make sense. We are still there, but really smaller volumes if you compare to 2 years ago. In Kazakhstan, it's also an interesting market because it's an emerging market. It seems like a good market. We'll see how it goes there, because now we are there for 1.5 years, something like that. We are earning money there already, but we don't have the scale there still. So there's a lot of potential there. Yeah, so I think the main idea that we're going to emerging markets just because there's a lot of people that are underbanked, so banks don't give them the credit because or the loans because they don't have metrics or they don't have information about the people. So we are looking from sort of different angles, so we are looking on different data. For example, in online lending, it's one of the criteria is from which for which phone do you ask for the loan, and we have database that well,
so like big data and intelligent, maybe so artificial intelligence somehow,
yeah.
So you learn from
we have some quite big database, so we already know. Of course, it differs from the market to the market, and that's why at the beginning you lose some money. But when you start to understand the clientele in the market, then it's really small things that make the difference.
Okay, great. That's the great thing about P2P and fintech, of course, I think. Yeah, so maybe we can just continue with the next question, which makes sense in Twino's case. How can risks be reduced by the company? Risk, for example, like economy slow down, loan originators quit their business. Of course, it's in-house, but maybe economy slow down.
Yeah. Well, we have seen something like that already in the past in Georgia's case, for example, and that's why it's quite important to have multiple markets. Georgia hit us pretty hard in 2017 because it was, I think, 60% out of our portfolio, so we are really based on that country. So currently we have at least two heavyweights, which is Russia and Poland. Both of them we have quite huge portfolios in both of the countries, and we have some smaller countries such as Latvia and Kazakhstan, which have the potential. And that's why we are currently looking also to some additional markets just to diversify our portfolio, so that if something happens in some of the countries, you never know. I mean, in Russia something can happen, some political crisis, or I don't know. So Poland is a more stable country because it's in Europe. So okay, it's something that you can look on. But we of course have made also some stress tests to understand which is the well, sort of environment, and when we have to change something in our business, and because we are monitoring all of these things on a daily basis, everything's in-house. For example, our risk department, they're monitoring the default rates on different periods, 30 days past due, 60, 90, so they're looking at those figures on daily basis, and we really good, well, we know our originators really good, and that's probably the strong side of ours, that we are always aware of what happens in every country that we are in, because we are really there. We have employees there. We communicate with them on weekly, at least weekly basis, and we go to visit them.
Okay, so you have offices in all countries?
Yes, we are operating in 5. In Russia, we have 2 offices. We have one in Moscow and one in Voronezh.
But maybe the next question, I have another one in my brain, but anyway, the next following question might be, the borrowers, they go to the offices or do everything online?
No, it's purely online. Usually it takes a maximum of 15 minutes. You go to our website, then you apply for the loan, then we sort of calculate whether we'll give you the loan, and then you receive or not receive the money. What is an interesting thing is that not that many people receive the loans that apply for one.
Okay.
For example, in Latvia, the acceptance rate, the portion that we give the loan divided by the person that applied for the loan is around 25%, something like that. So every 5th person gets the loan.
But that's very important to keep it like this, because
because otherwise the default rates,
again,
and it just doesn't make sense for ourselves to risk. We have done something like that in future. We have tried everything, but currently we know the markets. We don't do stupid moves. We just
like Georgia. To come back to this, you lost a lot of money there, you said, but the CEO still looks like relaxed.
In Georgia?
Yeah.
We are still there, but we just we had a really big office there. Now we don't have that big office there, so we have less employees, because otherwise we had huge costs there, because previously, before those changes, we were really big there. I think we had 200 or 300 employees there, so it's really huge. Now we, I think, have 50 or something like that, because otherwise we were just losing money there. Currently we're profitable there, but yeah, we're still making money, but because we have cut the costs, otherwise it didn't make sense to stay there.
If the investors don't want to get too nervous, we should not look too closely to the financial report of 2017. We should wait for 2018 maybe.
Yeah, but I think just to be sure, I think we will issue them both. That's why we want to also issue the 2019, at least the first half. Also audited, but just the first half of the year, because just to give the sense how does it look right now, because we can obviously give our numbers, but I think audited numbers would be more trustworthy for the investors.
Okay, great. So we should stay relaxed, is what you say.
Currently it's really good. We are looking to expand, also looking at some markets, but doing some really good due diligence, because we don't want to go just try it out. So and also some additional projects, what I think is important, just to also sort of diversify your group's business perspectives, because sometimes some of the business side could go wrong, and then you have some other income stream that can help you. So for example, the online banking is something that we would look on, and other products.
Great. So I think diversification is the word to go to the last complex of questions from my side maybe.
Okay.
Of course I love Twino, because it has a good design, it works properly on my side, so I have no problems with Twino. It's the only thing, the financials maybe some would worry about a little at the moment, but anyway, diversification is I think a word, an important word in all assets, in all investment assets. So maybe when we talk about Twino, you can also name some other platforms you would recommend just for diversification on the investor side. What do you trust in? What's your experience? Maybe except Twino, of course, you will be first at Twino for sure.
Yeah, well, I know that there are different platforms in Latvia. I think currently you're visiting 8 or right? So
I visit 6 in Latvia and 2 in Tallinn.
Yeah, so it's really booming. But I think for the investor, the most important thing is to look at the fundamentals, to see how the company, how's the company working, and what's their business model, and what's behind that. So sort of to understand who are the owner of the company, just to if I don't know if there's any platform like that in Latvia, but Latvia is a small country. There obviously can be also some people that are not that transparent or positively minded, and that's why I think it's always important to sort of gather all the data that you can from the company.
And maybe make a visit.
Yeah, it's obviously really difficult at the beginning, because the company is new, so you never know. But still, you can maybe come to visit or make some video call with them. I think all of the platforms, if they're nice, then they will talk with the clients, because it's their reputation, so it's important. So I think that's the most important thing. Other than that, we have different, for example, we and Mintas, we sort of are in the same industry, P2P, but we have completely different business modules. They have marketplace where are lots of originators. For us, it's our originators, so it's also different risk profile. Yeah.
Okay, great. So maybe we continue to the next question. Of course, we do not give any investment advices in this video. Everybody and all investors have to make their own decisions, of course. But maybe our viewers would just be interested. A person like you're in a job, of course, you always talk about investments, and now we would like to ask you, what are your investments? So not only P2P, I mean in general, real estate or stock market and so on. Maybe you have some ideas about it to tell us.
I think that the important thing is to diversify. Of course, most of the investors do that, but also to sort of diversify in different assets and different investment vehicles and so on. So one of the things that was pretty interesting last year, I also tried it out, was ICOs and cryptocurrencies, which is something really crazy. And when you invest there, you have to be sure that you can lose that money, otherwise it's super risky. But it's something new, and was something interesting also for me, because it was something really different from the technical side, because the UI, the user experience, is really bad there. You have to input some weird lines of numbers and letters, and then you just send some digital coin. So it was something really new, but it was interesting. I think that's something that if you're looking high risk investments, that's something that you can take a look on. From more regular ones, stock market of course is good, but from my point of view, at least currently, we are in really high levels. We are reaching, well, we are currently at the highest ever, so in the world's history, but well, economy is improving, so it makes sense. But at the same time, some valuations that are in the tech world also are crazy right now. So
yeah, but on the other hand, if you watch the indexes, it's always a highest point one day. So also
course,
last year, so you never know how it's continues. So it's about 6% per annum, I think, on the long term, usually.
Yeah, but well, there's usually also market corrections. So when the market falls a little or a lot. And I think that we haven't had any for 10 years or since
2008 it was and maybe 2012 I think.
So maybe that's why I think it's always to be sure where do you invest in. If you're looking for a long-term investment, then of course it really doesn't matter, because as you said, you will receive historically up to 10% in the index. Stock markets indexes, so that's not a worry. But if you need some liquidity, that you need some cash for your daily life, then probably you should also keep at least some portion of cash in your portfolio, or in some really liquid, I don't know. Well, peer-to-peer is a great example, because you can have the money really fast back, but also some funds that give lower return, but you can access the money if you need it, because in some funds it would take some time, and there would be some penalty fees.
If you make direct investments on the stock market, you can also sell the shares.
Yes, of course.
There.
Yeah, but then there's the psychological side. You never know when it's going to decline, when it's going to fall. You don't want to lose your money, and then you're constantly struggling. So that's something that, because investing, it's really a game of psychology. You just are looking at things, but
I think you get used to it by the time.
Yeah, of course, constant stress.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. But anyway, okay, great. So some ideas about that, and so maybe some viewers might be interested to sign up on the platform. I think I will put the link below. You have no affiliate program.
No, but we are also taking a look on that. One is affiliate program, another is a referral program. So
maybe that's also very interesting.
Yeah, we are also thinking about that. But well, currently it's not in development. It's something that it's in our backlog, and we're thinking about it.
Yeah. So anyway, you let me know if there is one day.
Sure.
Okay, great. So then I think there was a lot of information in this interview, and really thank you for your time. Yeah, and thank also the viewers for watching, of course.
Thank you.
And then we say goodbye to the viewers, I think, and have maybe one more coffee together to talk more private. Yeah. Okay, super. Goodbye.
Bye.